Woo!
Wow, thanks. All right, well, welcome back to the second edition of Player of the Week interviews for Scarlet and Violet. It's a tad delayed, but it's here. This week we are interviewing NU community long-standing member POKESLICE. As you guys saw in the post that I
Yeah.
made, there's a
Woo!
lot of accolades there. I'm not gonna read all of them, but
A lot
you
of
guys
a lot
you
of
guys can
accolades.
go to the thread and like my post. That's
I'm
like
very decorated.
very decorated indeed.
Very decorated.
So if you want to give yourself a little tad
Spammer.
intro here, then
All right, hi. I'm PokeSlice. Call me Slice. Um, what did I write here? Or what did I tell you to write? Known for I'm
let's
undefeated
see.
in SCL.
Yeah, greatest suspect
Greatest NU
SSNU
suspect
suspect
spot
player.
player of
Yeah.
all time. I'm actually 1-2 now in NUCL, which is pretty cool. So let's hope I don't end up negative, but who knows? I don't even know who I play this week, but whatever. We'll find
You
out.
play my team.
And yeah,
I think you play
do I
Boof.
play your team?
I'm pretty
Oh, I
sure.
play Booth.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Booth, if you're listening to this, please throw so I don't end negative. Maybe. Who knows? And also, yeah, I am the coolest member of the NU community. Even if it is self-proclaimed, it's still true. And that's basically all you need to know.
Ah, damn! I just snapped a rubber band on my hand while you were reading that, so I just getting us with whiplash a little
All
bit.
right.
But yeah,
That's
so it
awesome.
was slightly delayed, but it's here. PokeSlice in the middle of college and walking his dog. You know, it's hard to work
Oh
around.
yeah, my dog. I also have a dog who's pretty cute. Samoyed, super fluffy. Do we have a picture? Awen, are you gonna edit in a picture of my dog?
I will
No.
put your dog on the thumbnail.
Oh yes. Okay, I'll send you a good picture. Yeah, my dog is pretty cute. I haven't seen him in like 2 weeks, but I'm still walking him anyways. So
The virtual dog walks.
it's a great bit. I love it.
All right, so we do have quite a lot of questions for you guys. You guys kind of went crazy in the thread. We
It's
had more
true.
questions than we had for Keo. Keo's interview, I think, was about an hour 20,
Yes.
and there is
Oh.
let's
Okay.
see, there was
And I like talking. I don't know if Keo does.
yeah, let's
So
see, there was seven, four, that's 15. We had 19 questions for Keo. We had 33 today, so we're gonna try and kind of blaze through it a little
oh
bit
geez.
fast. But
Yeah, speak for yourself. I'm talking for 3 hours
all right, cool. I'm gonna have to break this up into like multiple files.
in 2 parts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so starting, do you want to start with Lilo or Lucario? Because I think
Whatever you're feeling.
I'll
Um,
flip a coin. I'll ask Google.
okay, yeah,
I'll
flip
ask
a coin. Who-
flip a coin. Lucario's gonna be heads, and Lilo is tails. All right, we got heads, so we're starting with Lucario.
All
So
right,
your name is PokeSlice, and the grand old
true.
question that has been asked multiple times everywhere is, what is the Pokemon that you're slicing in your name? Because you are PokeSlice.
So, common misconception, because people see the word slice and they think that, because I'm slicing something. It actually comes from, I remember it was during COVID, right? I mean, this probably answers a question later on about how I got started. Um, but it was during COVID and I was sitting at the table, I opened up, PS for the first time and I was like, oh shoot, like what should my username be? And I was sitting there eating pizza and playing Pokemon, and I'm like, great, I got a name, Pokemon and Pizza Slice, and I put it together, and we go from there. So, what am I slicing? Which Pokemon?
I
I don't
mean,
know. Is there a pizza Pokemon yet?
What's the pizza Pokemon?
Right. I was about to say.
Wormadam Sandy, I guess. That's like the closest thing.
There's. Hold up. Let me look that up. There's no way you just said Wormadam Sammy.
Dude, look at
Sandy
him.
is a.
Look at him. He has pepperonis and everything, bro.
Are you
I'm
serious?
serious.
Oh wait, this is my new spirit. Wait, I did not know this. Hold up. This is
Bro,
my new favorite one.
I'm telling you, Wormadam Sandy. He got the pepperonis, like you got the crust, the
Holy
kind
shit,
of like
that's amazing.
the pale yellow is the sand. Like he's pizzaed the fuck up. Like he is a pizza.
I've never taken a look at this mom before. You know what? Yeah, let's go with this. Wormadam Sandy. That's who I'm doing. Lock it in. Yeah, final answer.
So second question from Lucario here: if you could bring down one OU Pokemon, I'm assuming he's talking current gen. If you could bring down
Yeah,
one
I
OU
think so
Pokemon
too.
to NU to
Yeah,
balance the tier, which would you choose?
To balance the tier, look, they're OU for a reason, you know. Like they're not really. There's not really anything that I look at and I'm like, this could balance out the tier. Um, yeah, I mean, the more I look through the lists, the more obscene the mons get. I would maybe say no. I was gonna kind of joke around to say Toxapex because we need a bulky water, but like the truth is, Toxapex is not exactly the mon that I think would help out anyone anyway. But honestly, it might be fine. Now that I look, like I'm just looking at the tier now and thinking about NU. We got Glowbro, we got strong ground types, we got, you know, that's kind of it. But we have ways, I think, to maybe pressure Toxapex. Like that might be actually a pretty solid pick here. Toxicroak 2, just set up on it. Thunderous. Um, what else is even here? Toxicity. Like we actually have a lot of ways to probably deal with Toxapex. People would hate it and they complain forever, which is my favorite part about just Pokemon in general, watching people complain. But I actually think we could probably deal with it pretty well, and it would add. I mean, what could we free? We could definitely then free Inteleon, maybe Cloyster, Dreadnought stuff. Probably not. Oh, Terrakion for sure. Um, that's probably a pretty good bouncing act actually in the NU tier. Yeah.
I just did the biggest, like, the fucking SpongeBob gif of the fish turning around and like looking into the crowd. I
Yeah.
just I just did
Wow.
one of those in real life. Like I know I don't have face cam on, but
You don't like my answer of Toxapex, even though I'm
I
right?
was gonna say Dondozo, but you were kind of on the same wavelength with.
No, look. I don't know if a strong, unaware Pokemon like that is really gonna be
It'd
balanced
be
for
fucking
NU.
hilarious though. That's what I'm thinking. But
But it wouldn't be balanced. Lucario wants to know what's gonna balance everything out. Like
true.
at the end of the day, you bring down Dondozo, and in a tier. I mean, look, we have some strong breakers, but like realistically, a lot of the way that people are breaking right now is with setup. So
Yeah,
if
that
you go
mon.
ahead and you
Yeah,
take away,
I retract my
the way to
statement
set
there.
up, come on, come on, Awen, do better.
Yeah,
Toxapex would be like Dondozo, but balanced for NU.
true. And I'm saying true
Maybe.
strictly because I don't have a better alternative. But
I think it's pretty. I actually think it would be a pretty good pick. I think we should do it. I mean, look, go through the tier also. Then you have things like Meloetta. Uh, uh, that's kind of the only thing I haven't mentioned. Espeon. We have a lot of psychics. We have a lot of Upa is somehow still here.
disregard the
You know,
fact that Toxapex does get the move knockoff. But
disregard that it also gets to move Terra.
true. All right,
All right,
third
what's
banger
next?
question here from Lucario. If a Smogon user invited you to their wedding, would you go?
Is this Lucario inviting me to his wedding?
Now,
I don't
granted, I'm
know.
not gonna throw shade, but like the population of Smogon is pretty high, right? And
Yeah,
I really doubt there's a lot of users on this site with a significant other that I can think of. There's a couple that I can
really?
think of off the top of my head.
What? I feel like everybody has one.
Yeah, no,
I mean, look,
we're Pokemon
I
players.
have one. I'll say it.
Yeah,
I'll break the stereotype that Awen's trying
it's
to
not
put out
really a
there.
stereotype. It's just kind of true.
No, 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 Awen, it's okay.
If you
The
think
gamer
about it,
stereotype
if
doesn't
you
have a
think about
girlfriend.
it,
It's fine.
hey man,
Um, would I invite a smoke, or would I go to? I would both invite people, and I would go to their weddings. Honestly, if I was close with them, like I don't see why not. Like to me, um, even though it's online, you're still like at this point too. Like when I was in like 10th, 11th grade, or whatever, when I first got started. That's crazy to say, by the way. That was like 4 or 5 years ago. Um, Probably not. But at this point, now that I'm like older, and I spent more time talking to people, and just in general, I've shared more of like who I am with other people online. Yeah, I don't see why not.
see,
Um,
like if Rabia had a wedding, I'm definitely crashing that bitch if he didn't
oh,
invite me.
100%.
That'd be so
If
fire.
he doesn't invite me, when he gets married, if he gets married, you don't know, he might not want to. We're going. We're flying all the way out there. Yeah, it is Florida though.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what? We'll suck it up for the Rapio wedding.
Facts. Fourth question.
Got to make sure we're in that YouTube video.
The YouTube video. We crashed the NU tier leader's wedding.
Here's what.
Fourth question, more Mons related. Scarlet and Violet, or actually, I read this backwards.
Yeah,
Sword and
SS
Shield
versus
or Scarlet and
SV.
Violet, or SS or SV.
This is a weird question. I mean, look, like keep it short, SS, right? But that's partially just because I feel like I understand the tier really well, and especially by the end, disregarding my current NUCL record in SS, um, I felt like I I felt like I was pretty good at the tier, and I understood the tier, and I understood the interactions, um, and I understood building the tier. So for me, based off of just kind of enjoyment right now, SS, um, yeah, SV right now is a little just too chaotic. But I feel like by the end of the gen, or not even by the end, but as things kind of settle down post DLC, and
Yeah.
I really get to like I've realized myself that I do much better in more solved metas, especially that now that I just don't put in the same 10,000 line effort that I was doing over COVID into the tier. So in a more solved meta when things are a little bit calmer and I'm more involved or it's easier to like really keep up with everything. I think SV will probably end up taking it away. I just think it's more exciting of a meta based off of how SS ended up. But right now SS for sure.
I mean, I kind of agree with that. Now, granted, I'm a very big SS hater, but
You are. That's true.
that's only because goddamn Vileplume. That's the only reason.
I hate that mod, bro. You don't even get
Granted,
me
I
started.
have two. Now I'm tooting my own horn, but two NUPL wins back to back with a team named
MF
the MF
Plumes
Plumes, in all caps, by the way, all caps. That's important. But I
with two
fucking
O's.
two O's and in all caps. I fucking hate that mon though. That's like the only thing
I
that
hate
like
that mod.
makes me hate. And Vaporeon,
I feel like
fuck Vaporeon. Not actually, but you
if
know what I
you
mean.
if you dislike Vaporeon in the tier, it's really a skill issue, and it's just because you're bad at the tier.
Yeah, okay.
I'll die on that hill. What's
Yeah,
the next
okay.
question? Controversial mod opinion? Yeah,
Controversial
yeah. You
NU
know what?
related
Let's
opinion.
go with that. Let's go with that. If you at any point in SS, and I know there's going to be a screenshot out there of me saying this, that I think Vaporeon's annoying, blah blah, this that whatever. But if you think that Vaporeon is bannable or a problem in SSNU at any point in the generation, it is entirely a skill issue and it's on you and you should build better. And that's the only
He's calling
time
you
I'll
out,
really
Keo. He's
agree.
calling you out.
I don't know.
I don't know if
Did
you're
Keo
watching
say it?
this,
Yeah, I'm
Keo,
calling.
but
No, Quiz was saying it too. I think like recently. I'm saying it to everybody. Who else was who really brought it up at one point in the gen? Exposal, I think did. Um, I probably did too. That's the truth. But like everybody probably would say that at one point. But everybody who said that, including myself, skill issue. Get better, build better. Rotomo is not an answer when your volt switch does less than 50 to a water type. You should know that.
yeah. Now, are you sure that the controversial NU opinion is that Cress is balanced in SSNU? I'm
Yeah,
calling out a
okay.
specific
Next
subset
question.
of users that voted do not ban on this Pokemon.
Next
There's
question.
four
I
of
don't even
them.
want to go down that rabbit hole.
All right, so let's go into Lilo because that's also
All right.
kind of casual and Mons related. So,
Yeah.
now granted, this has a little bit of context to it, but things you prefer in Europe compared to America. If you want to jump into the context on that, because
Oh, yeah. This question's funny just because Lilo, I know that you thought that I was in Europe for the year. I was not. I was in the Middle East, in Jerusalem actually. But I still like this question because I did end up, traveling through Europe a little bit, and just really being outside the U.S. Let me tell you, the biggest difference between Europe versus the U.S. is there's a feeling of um, camaraderie is probably the right word, and it's much cleaner and quieter. And like my favorite place I went to, I was lucky enough to go to Ireland, and I remember like what you're walking down and probably Irish people are gonna be like, what the hell happened? Like, where did he end up? Where he ended up? With this experience. But they have like some competition called like the Tidy Town competition in Ireland where all these little towns in like the countryside compete for who has the tidiest town. Like they pick up trash. It's a whole contest, but it's really just for bragging rights, right? There's nothing really to it, like $1,000 or something. I don't know. But I remember like we were walking along and we saw like some businessman like in a full on suit on the phone, like bend down to pick up trash and throw it out in like some random tiny town in the middle of nowhere, and like that blew my mind. I was like, that would never, like, I'm from LA. Like, that would never happen walking down the street of LA at all. Like,
Probably get
that's
asked for
crazy.
crack money before you would see people picking up trash.
Exactly. You're more likely to see people literally take their entire trash can and just chuck it across the road, than you are to see, somebody bending down to pick up trash. Like, that really, I was like, if I know it's not what all Europe is like, and I know that's probably not what all Ireland is like, but at that moment, I'm like, yeah, the fact that that could even, sort of happen anywhere in the world, um, that's crazy to me. So that's probably my favorite. That's the thing I really prefer the most. I guess it's like a bigger thing. Just culturally, it's much friendlier, much more, much cleaner, much nicer, yeah, all that. I don't know. Is there a word for that?
I mean,
Hospitable, maybe.
I think
I don't know.
hospitality, I think, is what I put that at. I like camaraderie. I like that.
Yeah, camaraderie sound like in
Just
my head that makes sense.
cleanliness, I
People,
think, is a big
yeah,
thing.
people. It feels like people care more about other people than they do in the U.S.
I think that also happens with, I mean, a lot of Europe has varied, like, compared to the US, I mean, we have like 350 million people or some shit. So, like,
I mean, Europe's a massive place too, bro. But
I know that, but I'm
you're right. I
saying,
know
like,
what you
in
mean.
like
I know what you
specific
mean.
European countries, there's a lot less population, I guess, which makes a difference, probably.
I don't know. I think when you're dealing with tens of millions at that point, it doesn't matter. But
Yeah, I know, but like
maybe.
you're comparing like now for everyone's context because Slice is from LA, the entire state of California has more population just in the grand scheme of things has a higher population the entire country of Canada by like a few million. Just to put it out there.
Probably more. Whatever.
So I think
We'll look it
when
up
you put
later.
it into to perspective when you go to a country like Ireland. Like I'm gonna look this
Yeah,
up.
so California is.
Yeah,
I
Ireland's
wonder how many
population is
Ireland.
5 million. So there's a
Oh,
little bit of a
there's more people
discrepancy.
in the city of LA than there are in Ireland. That's true. Just different culturally. I love it. All right, what's the next question?
What accomplishment you feel is missing from your Pokemon resume? I
That's a
think this is missing a
good.
word in there, but
Yeah. What? No. Yeah. Kind of.
what
Whatever. It doesn't matter.
accomplishment do you feel is missing in your Pokemon
Yeah.
resume?
Listen, do
Same
you
shit.
or do? I understand. We both understood the question.
Yeah.
Um, it's an interesting question. I think honestly, I don't really think that way. For me, Mons, it's really just about having fun and hanging out with people. So like in that regard, I feel like I could walk away from the game. No, walk away from the game as if I'm like a legend retiring. But like I could quit like tomorrow and I could be totally satisfied with really everything I've done. I will say though that um I think that winning an individual, I mean, yeah, winning an individual would probably be something that I'd like, to do at some point. And I recently almost had my chance against seasonal against Suther, but then I didn't really care. I didn't really try to prep so hard. I didn't play great and all that stuff, which, you know, looking back on, I regret. I didn't really think I would care so much until, I lost and I was like, damn, I should have put in a little more effort. So maybe I'd like to do another run like that. That was a run I was pretty proud of, and not one I expected. But besides that, I don't know. I feel like I've kind of done everything, that I quote want to when it comes to the Pokemon world right now.
Yeah, that makes it. Hold on, my mom is texting me.
Oh yeah, tell her say hi.
Okay. I'm not gonna do that, but
Why not?
strictly because no, I'm not going to. Okay. So now this is a groundbreaking question here. Pancakes or waffles?
Okay, pancakes. Okay, next
uh
blueberry pancake.
all right, you could just stopped it at pancakes, but who do you think will be the best NU player in this year's circuit? So this
Oh,
year meaning 2024 for the record.
oh, find the upcoming year.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm probably most looking forward to seeing how Axertix does. Um, just because, this was his first year, at least that I know about, being really on the tour scene. And obviously he went ahead and he made waves. Um, and yeah, and I find his game exciting to watch. I like him as a person. He's fun to play against. We're both, we both had the lucky gene. So I enjoy, I enjoy seeing a good lucky game, but he's also extremely skilled, so it kind of like makes up for it. It's a good combo to have to be both good and lucky. Um, and I think that, if he's already making waves, I think he's already at a circuit playoffs right now, though, right? He lost
I
to,
think so. Axertix
I
was
don't
like the
have it,
2 seed, so that would have
but he
been
lost. Let me see. Let
that
me
would have
see.
been
Let
like
me see.
Wadley, I think, right?
No, well, I'm the two. I'm the 15.
Oh,
So,
okay. So Wadley played. Who was first in our
um,
circuit? I don't even fucking remember.
Dugza. I think Wadley played Dugza.
I think so. Who was the fucking? Because Axertix was like, I'm gonna look it up. Fuck,
Yeah.
if my goddamn thing could.
Anyways, but Axertix, I think that he has my vote of confidence. I think that if you're doing that stuff and you're committed and doing that well in your first year, really playing tournaments, at least in NU, um, then yeah, I'm super excited to see kind of where he goes with that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know if he's necessarily going to be the best player in the circuit or over the year. I wouldn't be surprised to see him at number one at the final rankings. I think that you know who else would be up there? Probably Tooth or two. It seems to be putting in a lot more work. Um, is there anybody else? I think those are probably the two, but really Axer Tix is who I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I
So,
just found it. Axertix played Orenberry Blissey and
OBB and
lost
lost.
in two
Yeah,
in round one.
yeah. Whatever, your
Yeah.
first time, and he was like the 3 seed, I think.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, yeah. I think he's going to do much better next year. I don't think he's going out in the first round, and I think he's easily making it. It's kind of dangerous. I think there's a strategy to not being the number one seed in
Yeah,
circuit,
the 1 seed is
or
cursed, and like everything
because
ever.
like here's the thing. Like, look, if you look at circuit right now, I think everybody's a super strong player. Like, you kind of look at the the fringe matchups, they seem much harder, at least to me, than the people like more stuck in the middle. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And that's not to disrespect anybody or anything like that, but like, you know, even like my matchup against Elias too, like I snuck, I mean, this is me tooting my own horn. I don't actually think I'm this good of a player per se, but like, I came in second in seasonal and then I snuck in because I hadn't played anything else, and suddenly I'm the 15 seed. When you have other people who didn't even get that far, who were much higher seeds than I was.
Yeah.
This is not to say that I'm, any good at all, or that I deserve to be, something higher, or that I'm like whatever. But I'm just kind of pointing out, like, I feel like, and I see it along the circuit, that like there's a lot of really good players, like GXC at 11, for example, right? Like, if GXC just signed up for more tours, I mean, how many did he sign up for? One, and he won open. Like, that's it, and that's how he got in. And
Yeah,
suddenly
he
he's the
quite
11.
literally only one
That's a
open.
much
That
better.
is quite
That's a
a.
much better example than myself in at the 15. So that's much better. Like, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So like, there's a strategy to it, I think. But
Yeah,
people
and I
don't
mean
think that
even
far ahead.
even in other shit when you're like looking at like seeding, and I'm gonna use sports here because I'm a very big sports guy, but the 1 seed in like March Madness in college basketball is
Yeah,
not not great to be at because you have a lot more like pressure, I guess, and
yeah,
this is like a psychological thing, but it's like there's been in recent memory that I can think of in March Madness, the one against the 16. The 16 has won 2 times in history, but recently I don't think we've seen a 1 seed actually win March Madness, like the
yeah.
national
I mean,
championship. So
that's a little different too, just because at that point, everybody's competing. Like part
yeah,
of
yeah,
the joy of, or part of the danger of the lower season circuit, um, yeah, is that you know these people aren't necessarily competing all year. So they're like GXC should not be, the 11th seed. Like GXC should, in theory, be a one. And probably have like three tour wins off the year because he's just that good, even though he doesn't play, right? Like, but
yeah.
one time he plays, he wins, he beats everybody, and we're like, oh damn, we forgot GXT was really him for a second, right? It just
For real.
comes back every little bit to remind us.
Yeah.
He'll do this thing where like he'll play like once a month, right? But he'll send like a screenshot to like council chat of like his laddering run, and he'll be at like 1750 with like a 94 GXC. He's like, yeah, still got it, he's he's probably, I guess kind of going back to the Lucario question. If he wanted to be, I mean, he's probably the best player in NU if when he's committed and into it. As we've seen, FCL and UPLs, et cetera, et cetera. He obviously, my boy Kyther beat him, um, but who I also think is an awesome player. By the way, he's great.
That's
Like
my
I love watching his
that's my
game.
NUPL
That's
goat right there.
that's who I hope
Woo!
wins circuit. Even though if I win this round, I have to play him. I kind of hope he beats me and wins it all. But whatever, if I get there. Um, but there's a lot of cool players. I don't know where I was going with that thought. I was in the middle of a
Yeah.
text.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, next question.
So
We
we're
should
gonna
we should speed up a little bit
yeah,
too.
we're gonna go into I think Keo here.
Okay, let's go to
So
Keo.
what changes would you make to the current tiering system, if any?
What changes would I make? The only change that I think I would make, I really dislike, um, in retrospect, the change in council voting from I think what it's a 2/3 requirement now to ban something.
Yeah, instead of
Um,
simple
you know,
majority.
I understand, the change and all that, but I look, if you take all our votes from this year and you were to go ahead and factor in, um, it being a half majority to ban like a simple majority versus, a
Super
super
majority.
majority,
Yeah.
you look, you're like, how many things would be gone right now? Like, how different would the meta be? And as somebody who has voted ban on majority of those mons who have been on those slates, um, it's a bit frustrating sometimes to see that we're a council of 9 people, and like you only need like two, three, four. I don't actually remember the math. Is it three or four? Do not ban. I think three. No, it must be four.
Well, for a
I don't
super
remember the math.
majority, it'd be 6 out of 9. So,
Yeah.
so it'd be like
So
4 people for a do not ban.
yeah, yeah. So you need like 4 people, or like three and like an abstain, which happens every little bit. Whatever it is, or we add more people and all that. But it's like I feel like the vote of a do not ban is much stronger now than the vote of a ban. It's disproportionate. And as somebody who wanted to see a few of these Pokemon bands, such as Glowbro, it's a bit frustrating at times.
Yeah. So,
That that kind of segues into the next question a little. No,
yeah, how much of an impact do you think the community slash council's approach to tiering during SS had to do with the current state of the tier? So, like when it froze because it's no longer current gen, and then he puts like a sub thing in here. Sword and Shield
yeah,
NUBL has
NUBL has
18,
18 Pokemon.
18 Pokemon. Criticism that he has throughout the generation is that in pursuit of a stable metagame, we banned all the potential offensive counterplay to new threats. Never really got to see how they all interacted with each other.
So I'm going to answer question 2 and question 3, which is: do you think the approach we've taken in Gen 9 with freaking NUPL unbans is better or worse for the state of the tier?
Yeah.
But I think that they're basically, the same question, like part A, part B.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so the problem with the SS tiering, from, in my opinion, is too early on, or I guess like I would call it the heart of, the gen. We had, council TL, whatever it was, who were way too out of touch and way too conservative about like touching anything. The best example is you had Crest in the tier for what? I don't know how long it was, 6 months or something crazy. Mienshao was around for forever. You had all these things that were in the tier and were pretty unanimously broken, that nobody did anything with. And then when there was that whole overhaul, community thread 2.0 or whatever we called it, and
Issues with
Rose
NU
Silo
by
like set down, yeah, and then
yeah
there was a whole thing.
issues with NU
And
started by realistic waters.
Yes, issues with Enya. It's a classic thread. Um, and look, and I don't think necessarily think that that was like the moment, but what ended up happening is as the gen went on, um, I wonder if it's because we just felt pressed for time, or we had a bunch of people, who were just out of the council, including myself, who and new TLs who were just, trying to do the exact opposite of what the council and TLs before them had done. We ended up being, I think, a little bit too ban happy too quickly. Um, which has obviously left its mark on the way we're tiering now in SV. Um, I don't think for the better. People are open to disagreeing with me, but what I think really happened though is that because you had this weird mix of we went way too slow, then we didn't have enough time. We just kind of tried to cram everything and like go 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 go
Yeah.
instead of trying to adapt or figure things out, and taking it slower. And then you factor in just people were so they just were done with the generation, and they stopped really caring so much. And then we're still banning things, but nobody's really trying to play the tier or adapt or do anything. Which I think, a Rabia question later on is kind of similar to this. We end up in a situation where people dislike SS because it's much fatter, it's much harder to break, the games are much longer, and they feel like, a lot of the offensive firepower that was banned for or suspected when it didn't need to be. Now, with that being said, I think that we're much more conscious about it now, obviously going into SV, but I don't really think that we've done a better job of tiering. Um, the way that we are, which is, much more conservative, much slower, much less fan happy. On the one hand, we should be less fan happy. SS, especially the end of SS, if we just had more time, and we had been able to take it slower, I think the tier would be, in a totally different spot right now. But what I think we're doing right now is we're trying to apply that philosophy of let's slow down and let's not ban things at the wrong time. And what I mean by that is, we're in those DLC metas where every single month we're just getting, bombarded by all these things. And, what we're basically doing right now, though, is we're trying to apply this philosophy of, whoa, 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 let's not ban things. But the problem is that when you're getting hit, let's say, with, I don't know, 20 things that are borderline busted slash busted, right? And you look at NUPL, the NUPL right now, which I think is what, probably 10 mons or something. I haven't even looked at it. Let me check
Yeah, I haven't.
real quick.
I'm not gonna lie, I
One,
haven't
two,
looked
three,
at it.
four, five, six, seven. Okay, it's 8 mons right now, and it's probably because a bunch like roads or whatever, and it's been more throughout the gen. But you look at these guys, and like a lot of them really had no place in the tier, right? Rain, for example, like Cloister, it's a Titan Hail, like and then there's the more uh controversial ones. Like I voted do not ban on Draken, for example. I think he did nothing wrong. Bring him back. But my point is like I think that right now the problem is that we're in these unstable meta games, and when you leave problematic elements in the or even borderline problematic elements in the meta game for too long, um, you're not really able to get to a point of balance. And if you're, let's say, only banning something that in other tiers it might ban day one, 2 weeks in, and suddenly a week and a half later you're freeing that guy again. Like it just gets to the point where you can't really have a fun or enjoyable meta, in my opinion, especially when tournaments are going on, that can really get anywhere. That being said, I do think that this attitude that we have now will going to go much slower. Will I think will be much healthier in the long run. The second we're done with the whole DLC model, I just think that right now, with the DLC model, it's just not fun, and I don't think we're doing it so properly. And I also think that, like I mentioned earlier, the whole voting supermajority change really, changes a lot of those things too. Like, we have Keto, we have ZS on council who are basically automatic do not bans. And then it kind of takes one or two other people to be like, well, maybe I'm on the fence. I don't know. And suddenly you really only need like one ban vote and Amon is staying.
Yeah.
Do not ban vote and Amon staying. Look, it's I understand it. I just don't think that this is necessarily the direction that I think we should be taking right now. But I do think that, in what, probably a month, 2 months, whatever it is, when we finally get our last drops and everything's a little calmer, then I think that the approach we're taking right now will be the right one. But right now, at this current moment, I can't really get behind it.
Yeah, I think it's March. I think is our next big DLC
March?
wave. I think so. Because
No,
everything.
no, it's this month.
Well, I mean, we're getting shit again from RU,
I'm getting a lot of RU.
but everything else from
Getting a lot
OU
from
is
RU. I mean,
yeah,
there's a weak list that I won't leak.
rude.
Actually, I probably could. I just don't want to go find it. But there's some crazy mons supposedly projected to drop, like Lucario, crazy things. So who knows?
I saw Talonflame on there. I was
Talonflame.
getting
Oh, that'd be
some
awesome.
I was getting some great fucking PTSD. I was
Yes,
really
thank you, part two.
yeah, I was really excited. I saw Whimsicott on there too. I was like,
That'd be cool.
the goat mon.
Probably
But
gonna be bad. That'd be cool.
hey man, you never know. It's an offensive grass. I think it's faster than Salazzle. I think actually it might just be slower. Fuck. Let me look. Hold on.
Okay,
Whimsicott. Give me one
what
second.
364?
I
Slower
think
than
yeah,
Slash.
it's slower by fucking one goddamn base stat.
It's at an awkward speed here. Yeah.
Very unfortunate. Question 4 from Keo. Which of the teams you've built is your favorite?
Okay. Probably my favorite team I built was in peak Vaporeon meta, where I just felt like all my teams were undefeatable because they had Vaporeon. Um, but there's one team specifically that actually did it have Vaporeon. It was look, my favorite team style by far is basically pivot plus strong physical breaker, but especially fighting types. Like you just give me any sort of volt turn pivot balance and I'm happy. Like I think that with that style you have enough room to play around bad plays, but you also, give yourself enough, momentum and offense to really outplay people and really, you know, push your own pace and control the flow of the game. So
Yeah.
there's one team that I made for Kyther for it was actually the first tour I was ever involved with. It was a BLT. It must have been what right over COVID. Shout out Bauer for getting me, for some reason getting me to come support. And I try hard to support. Like, it was like I was on the team. All I had was free time. I was building for Ninja, who I never played NU before, and I think I built him to a 7-2 record or something crazy like that. He had never played the tier before. Um, the there was one loss that was I'm mad about where it should have been a 6-0. It was great prep by us, and then Roxy dodged a gunk shot with a calm mind snore Sylveon and reverse 6-0 the entire team. That was annoying. Whatever. We don't need to go down that one. But there was a team I built for Kyther for tiebreak that never actually got brought. I think it was made a sample team at one point, which was a Defog, Nasty Plot, Rotamo plus Surfetched with like Guzzlord and Talon. Must be Guzzlord, Talon, Copper, probably Vaporeon last. Um, that team was awesome. That team was, especially at the time and at the meta, was so much fun. It was really before people caught on to Guzzlord. I remember running a knock heavy slam set designed to beat Sylveon, had a little bit of speed, which was, would just free up everything, or just even to knock Sylveon, so they sort of fetch 2 KOs with close combat. Um, that was an awesome team. That was also what I liked about it is it broke a lot of the principles that I have in when I build. It was the only time that I ever built a team that I really love that didn't have a Volt immune of any kind. I usually I usually always try to have a ground type at all times, and it didn't have one, but it was fantastic. That was my favorite team. That team was so much fun. Yeah.
Okay, I
Anyway.
just accidentally closed the Smogon thread and I was very confused for a
Oh,
second, but
okay. I'll read the next question. Do you have a specific play or set slash series that you're particularly proud of? Yes, I do. Um, I don't know who was around uh, for that NUPL. Must have been what 2 years ago. This is like the one that kind of I think put me on the map was my game against on Arceus, and I know you remember this
oh,
game
I
that
do
opening
remember
play.
it. I do. Yes.
This this is I think I peaked on this play, and I don't think I'm ever going to go ahead and do anything better in mods. Shout out on Arceus. I missed that dude. Best username on the site. Um, so that play for I don't know if Keo. I don't think you were around back then because it's still part of your boomer retirement phase. But it was NUPL. I had just come off the bench, and I think was it Rabia? Was it? I think Was Rabia? Somebody, I remember somebody said to me, went into my, this was like, when on Arceus was kind of, I guess, quote, like in his prime, where I think it was Rabia, went in like my channel and said, "Oh God, I'm so sorry that we're feeding you to on Arceus." And I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna weird. Like, I'm not gonna take the game so seriously. Like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. It's already over." And I was like, you know what? Like, whatever. We'll just bring something that I feel comfortable with. So I ended up bringing, what I was kind of saying earlier, a just Volturn momentum balance with a strong breaker with Spectre Gougy. And it was turn one. I let Spectre Gougy into on Arceus' team because it really pressured. I was really difficult to switch into, and he ended up leading Eggie. So this was like at first I was like, oh shoot, I'm just gonna click, like Sludge Bomb Draco here, whatever, and get a KO. And then I'm like, oh yeah, Eggie is faster by 2 points. And I was just kind of staring at the screen and I was looking at my team and I realized, okay, I brought this Vaporeon balance with a Dragalge that has five mons at like or six no, four mons outsped by Eggie, and one of them is one of the mons is like a Rotom, so it doesn't even matter anyways, right? So I was like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, if I can get rid of Eggie right now, then I win the game. That should just be my game plan. And I was looking at him and I'm like, man, I don't really have a good switch in, and on ours he's going to be super aggressive, right? So he's going to see my steel type, my stack attack, and he's just going to try to chunk it. And I stay in. We storms into my Dragalge as Draco turn one on probably the most aggressive read um, anybody's made in NU by both of us. We both got aggressive reads that didn't like, neither of us should have made the play we did. But I kind of knew, I knew on our style he was much more aggressive, and I was in a hotel room in Poland. I was like, oh man, I don't want to do this right now. Like this is, I'm on this trip. Like this is not my mood. And I'm just like, whatever, F it. Like we'll just make the play. And I ended up KOing his Eggie turn one. I think everybody watching that game like freaked out from what I remember because people were rooting for me. I was like the young community guy who had never really played a tour game before. Like that was my first real tournament game. I've been subbed in before in DPP where I went 0-2, but I probably should have won both. But they were both good games. This was really my first time, playing in the tour and UPL. That was a good. I'm so proud. That one after and then after that, just uh, Vaporeon just ended up cleaning house. I think it sat on our CCT for another like 30 turns or something, and just like scald burned everybody, and it was over. That was it. That was the play. I peaked. Like after that, I was like, I should retire. But
Yeah. And then 6 and 7, and this kind of goes into. I mean, two of Grimm's questions also just kind of tie into this as well.
yeah, let's get together.
How do you
Multi-pass.
practice and prepare for games? How often do you review your games, and do you have a pre-match ritual?
Okay. Um, let's start with Keo's question, just Keo's part of it. How do I practice slash prepare for games? Um, I don't. But I won't. The truth is, like, I don't really practice or prepare the same way that I used to. I just have more time. Back then it was COVID. I was in high school. It was much easier. Really over like the past year when I went abroad, like that kind of dropped off a little bit. And like I'm hoping now I have more time. I'm hoping I'm get back a little bit of that because I really like playing mods. I like just being in any community. Um, but how do I practice slash prepare? I think that the main way that I would, I guess, quote, practice or prepare would be to make sure I have teams that I feel comfortable with. Um, that, at the end of the day, for me, there's some people who are really good pilots and they just kind of can enter and show up into any game and you give them anything and they can make magic happen. I'm like, I'm okay with that route. I've had success in other tiers doing that. Like for example, I just went 3-0 in P World Cup without ever playing the tier or having anything. Shout out Ski for kind of carrying my prep there. Um, but for me, if there's a team that I'm comfortable with and a style that I'm comfortable with, and I understand the tier, it doesn't matter for me, it doesn't really matter if I haven't played a game in a month. right, or 2 months. Like I feel like I can go in there and I can make something happen. So I try to always, even if I don't even necessarily test them, like to have teams that theoretically like are comfortable and I'm comfortable with. Um, and then oftentimes though I will review my games, depending on the tour, depending on how it went down. There are some times where I look back at games and I go, man, like something went wrong here, and I played this uncleanly. Like, what was the turn? I think the two that pop to mind right now are from NUCL in when I was in SSNU. Like there was both my games, first against Hoenn, and then or first against Wheelo, then against Hoenn. I was I think the one against Wheelo is really, the main thing where I felt like I was outplaying for 99% of turns, right? And then there was one turn where I just didn't even consider the fact that, oh, you're right, like the Yancey's used because it has healed bell. And I punished it in the wrong way when I had kept up all this momentum all game. And even though, and the matchup, if I could prevent, Yancey from getting heal bell off, then my matchup was probably pretty good. But the truth is, like, if I wasn't able to, get the toxic on the gastro, and on the Talon, et cetera, and then prevent Dancy from getting a heal ball off. Like I never had a chance, and I whisked on the turn out the U turn, and it was me trying. I knew he was going to Dancy, even it was super low, and I knew I had to punish it, and I just like had like this brain fart moment. So like I go back, and a lot of my games that I've realized where I've lost have kind of been that way, where I felt like I was doing really, really well. Most of them. A lot of them I just get blown out,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like it's Mons, like it's gonna happen. But there's a lot of games like that where those are really the games that go back to the review. The ones where I was like, man, like I felt like I outplayed for 99 out of 100 turns, and then something went wrong. And I like to go back and kind of find those moments and try to, so I'm able to kind of recognize them going forward in the future. Um, and going to Grimm's question now, if I have a big game coming up, the main thing I do is I try to, you know, I often don't think about the nerves, and then I like open up the game and I'm like, oh shoot, like my ADHD like kicks in, and suddenly I'm like, just wired is probably the way I would describe it. Usually, what I do though is, I go to the bathroom beforehand. I don't want any, Finch incidents happening while I'm in a game. Um,
For those
and
of
then
you
I
that don't know,
usually,
Finch shit his
yeah.
pants in a tournament set. Famously shit his pants in a tournament set.
Sorry, Finch. I love using that as a reference. Honestly, when I'm like, oh yeah, I got it. I'll sometimes I'll DM people before like, hey, like 1 second, I don't want to pull Finch. Like I'll go. Uh, love Finch, bro. Nothing but respect. That's the only place where that comes from. Um, but and I listen to music a lot when I play. Actually, um, I find that like I'll get in the zone. I don't even have like specific music, that I'll put on. I'll just put on whatever, the Spotify daylist.
Yeah.
I think the Spotify daylist is like the best feature they ever added, by the way. Like this thing is unbelievable. Like right now, like if I have a game, I'll just open up Spotify, I'll put on the daylist, I'll put it in my AirPod, and like I just start vibing. And sometimes the music just gets me, and I'm like when I'm feeling good and there's like, I can only describe it as like a driving song, you know what I mean? Like a more
Yeah.
upbeat, like, and I'm just in the zone and I'm vibing and I'm like, I'm just clicking. I'm playing off instinct majority of the time too. Um, though, I mean, I do use a calculator, I do use the timer and all that, but um, those are the moments where I'm like, when I feel like I'm locked in, I feel like I can't lose. And it kind of comes from that. You got to make sure you go to the bathroom first. I always have water next to me. Um, I always have music going. It's good to find ways to stay calm and focus. That's probably the best advice I could give on that front.
So I think that nails out Keogh's, and then you already answered this one already.
Yeah, I
The
already answered that
start
one
and
about how I
the
started.
start in competitive mons.
Oh well, kind of well to add a little bit
Oh
more to
yeah.
that question about how I got started, just because I assume Grim wants to hear more than just why my name is POKESLICE. Um, so it was COVID. I had time on my hands. I've always loved Mons, and I stumbled upon an AIM video, and I was like, oh, like this is exactly the type of thing I'm looking for. Like this, you know, community of something that I've been passionate about before in the past, and I'm like down to take it more seriously. And I discovered through AIM videos, Smogon and Showdown, and the rest is history.
I think that's a lot, or a
It's a
lot
lot of
of
people.
how.
Yeah.
Fuck, I'm having like a major brain fart here. A lot of
No, I
people
know.
kind of got into Mons. At least I know I did. I got into Mons from Blunder and
Like,
Aim, I think. But
yeah, I mean, I still watch those videos. Like, I love the blend, and I like Aim on his own a lot too. Honestly, I've come to enjoy that weirdly much more. But I love the dynamics of Blunder and CTC and Aim, and like, I guess now Rabia, and all these people. Like, my favorite part about Mons is just that people come together and play as like friends in a community, right? Like that to me is the best. Like, I can never play Mons on my own at this point too. Like, for me, it's just all about the like just being with other people. Um, so when I love watching those videos, you just feel like you're in like a VC watching a bunch of friends hang out, making dumb plays and like making fun of each other.
yeah,
Peak. Like, I love that. It's the best.
I started watching more Blunder recently because I think Blunder just has no filter, which I think is fucking hilarious.
I love it. I have some Blunder merch too that I got years ago.
I have Pokey merch somewhere in my bedroom.
I
It's
always
a
check out the Blunder merch because if it's clean, I'll get it.
yeah.
And there's a lot of cool. He's taking it more seriously now over the years, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I have a old Pokey sweatshirt when he did Draft League. This is like
Oh, that's fine.
six,
He does
seven
them now
years
again.
ago, I think. I mean, he's still doing Draft League, but he had a team called the Bronx Bearticks, and the hoodie was clean as fuck. I still have it somewhere. It doesn't fit anymore, but I still have it. I'm like, I'm not donating this shit. It's mine.
Yeah, no, don't. That's great.
And yeah, we can kind of skip over question two because you already answered that. What competitive advice do you wish you heard/received earlier?
Okay, so this is a good question, and I think that there's another question here. Oh, Shinto here was asking a bunch of stuff about like newer players. Um, and I'm gonna actually tie together. Well, no, that's really two different things,
I
but
mean, you can tie them together. I
I
mean,
can
they're
do it, right? Like,
pretty
because
similar,
question
I think.
two, Shinto also asked for a newer player that wants to try and build their own teams and not use samples. What kind of archetype would you recommend they do? So, okay, these are great questions, and these are the type of things I like to talk about. Because I think it's no secret to anybody who's been around the community that I try my best at all times to help out newer players. Um, Part of the reason I came, to the NU community, and this might also be a question somewhere. Oh, it actually is Shinto's number four. Was NU the first tier you played when you started competitive Pokemon? So the reason I actually showed up in NU is I wanted to get more involved with like the whole communal side of things, which is probably, I'm probably one of the few people on the site who that was like their motivation. Um, like I said earlier, like for me, the joy of video games in general is that you get to do it with other people. So what I did though is I started out in OU for like a tiny bit, and I was like, okay, it's just you can't get if you're some nobody random, you're not necessarily good at the game, but you just kind of want to chill and get involved. OU's tough, right? There's so many people. It's a bit more toxic and all over the place and crazy. So I ended up I literally went room by room, and I just started talking a little bit, and I would see what happened, and you kind of ignored me, and it was a lot going on, but like nobody answered my question about like Mons or teams, whatever. Are you? I stuck around for like probably a few hours, maybe a day or two. I tried out a few things. This is back in like SSNU pre DLC or DLC, well, early DLC one. And people were like answering a few things, but there really wasn't so much going on. And then I was like, you know what, this doesn't feel right. And I went down to NU, and the room was popping back then. And there was a lot of staff on, there was a lot of community people on who were, super, super friendly to me and just kind of were answering my questions, helping me build teams and DMs. Um, it was really just honestly, it was a great experience, and I probably just showed up at the right time. But for those who were around, remember COVID times in your room, it was always kind of like that.
Yeah,
It was its own. It was clearly, I think personally, it was probably the most active of the lower tier rooms.
it
I
definitely
don't know if the
was.
numbers support that,
I think it
but it, it,
definitely
it
was.
definitely felt that way. And you just got a whole variety of different people at the time. A lot of staff were super active. Like, it was really cool. So I've kind of made it, in my head, one of those things where my goal is to help out the people who aren't necessarily, sweating the tier as much or who are new as much as I can. Which is nice to see, newer faces around. Like, Shinto is somebody who's popped up relatively recently, right? And there's a few others, around. I don't need to go through and name them all, but you just go pop into Discord, whatever, and
Yeah.
always feel free to tag me. And there's a bunch of people, who do people who DM me all the time and stuff about like team help. Like that's what I want to do. So I love these questions. Um, what competitive advice that I wish I had heard or received earlier? Okay, so I think the biggest jump that I had as a player, um, whether I knew it really or not, is I learned how to slow down. And what I mean by that is, you always hear from people, hey, like use your calc, slow down, like, think it through, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but what I don't think people really do enough is really learn like how to properly pace it and slow down at the right times. I think that that's a real skill that you kind of hone in the more you play. And I think that I've really started to, in my own games, in my own, at least in my head, I felt like this is like the part of my, game and my like, what's the right word? My whatever. It's part of my game that I feel that I've got to the I've like leveled up on in the
Yeah.
past probably maybe a year, a few months, whatever it was. Um, and I think that what you kind of have to do is use people will tell you save timer and like make sure you use it during pivotal moments, but it's really hard to go ahead and actually plot out a pivotal moment. What I think the best thing to do as a newer player, it's worth implementing in your ladder games. But the truth is, you don't really need to. You could play off instinct a lot, and kind of. But maybe if you want to get in the habit, is try to figure out. You can figure out so much info about your opponent's team, and stop yourself from making mistakes by just slowing down. Like for example, let's say it's turn one, right? Um, you should spend a little bit of time kind of on turn one figuring out what do they have what do you have that does super well into them, what do they have that does super well into you, what is your end goal game plan look like. And I think a lot of time people don't really use as much time as they should at the beginning of the game to kind of figure out, oh, that was a threat. And I still do this where I'll lead off and like a second later I'll go, yeah, maybe that wasn't the move. An example of this from my own game is actually NUCL. I keep using that because I analyzed it pretty recently. Or I thought about it against Helen, right? Where turn one, where I spent a bunch of time analyzing this team, and I thought it was going to be Rock Polish Goler and Rock's Duraludon, and with a jetpack, and I realized, oh shoot, I actually don't have Duraludon. I mean, yeah, I don't have Duraludon switch-ins at all, and I don't have Golurk switch-ins really either. Like, I can either pick: do I try to C team, or do I try to start off and lead against the Golurk or against the Duraludon? And I ended up leading G Valley and getting chip on the Golurk, and then I just like clicked turn one. Right, and I just clicked in multi-tack, and I thought, oh, it's not going to be choice band, whatever. And suddenly my GVL is at 3%. And as I look at his team, and as I play out the rest of the game, and everybody watches it, saw that even at 3%, Mon still put in work. And I realized, oh, like I didn't really think through exactly what my game plan should have been. And because of that, I'm now down a Mon that probably could have won the game. Maybe even still could have, but it missed, that rock slide. So I would say that, one of the main things I would tell people who are trying to get more, just more consistent, than anything else is spend a little bit of time, in turn one, for example, even on like a turn one, like, I don't know, a Flygon EQs into like your Vileplume or something, right? A lot of time you might be like, oh, I don't know, that's like automatically, scarf damage or choice band damage, and it's obvious. But a lot of times, you might take a second and try to calculate and figure out, oh, if that's going to be X, Y, Z, like what's my game plan into this team now? There's a lot of games where I feel like I can credit, slowing down and trying to really figure out my next, two, three, four steps, and calcing like what damage I need to have things at to KO them. So I have like, a long term game plan. Like against Elias, also in UCL, where I had already done calcs, at before I even sent that on about, hey, how much ship do I need on Umbreon for DD Flagon? Like where do I have set up opportunities? Like how much is Heavy Slam from Registeel, for example, due to my Flagon, et cetera, and so on. So once you're able to slow down and kind of think through long term in your game, you'll be much more consistent. And for a newer player who's trying to build their own teams and not use samples, I would recommend, something that I would recommend, truthfully, I'd recommend using balance. Well, really, I would recommend using what you're comfortable with. But if you really want to be consistent, like you don't want to be somebody who's just loading, balls to the wall, HO, as fun as it is, every game if you're trying to get better, or necessarily running stall. I think you should always try to find something. I like part of the reason that I like the volt turn balance with breaking power, like I said before, is I think fundamentally it's probably both the easiest to run and the easiest to really learn the basics of mons on because you're when you have a balanced team, it's a lot about it really is about long-term game plans. It's about assessing, what can your opponent's team do to you and what can you do to your opponent's team. And there's a leeway to, to make mistakes and to backpedal a little bit, and to, make plays, et cetera, et cetera. And then when it comes to you add the volt turn element of that, it teaches you a lot about, how to keep up momentum, how to get in your breakers and cause damage. And when you have like a breaker that can just click, people like to say like these brainless breakers, they're brainless, but the truth is like there's a lot of skill in learning how to position properly, and I think that's something that a lot of newer players probably struggle with. So that's what I'd recommend to you: find a balance or create a balance that has a sturdy defensive core that makes sense, and an offensive core that also makes sense and involves speed control in the form of some sort of scarfer. Um, just throw something like that on a team or make a team like that, you're probably good to go.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think balance, like just specifically as a play style, I think it allows you
Mm,
to kind of analyze a different thing. Because if you're just using HO all the time, you're just like playing super, hyper aggressively, and not to say that HO is
yeah.
brainless, but
Oh, no,
it's
I don't
just
think
kind
so.
of
I think that people give it a reputation. I don't think it's brainless at all. And I think it's a lot of fun. I
yeah.
love playing it every
It's a
time.
lot of fun. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just
I
like
just I just
specifically
don't think it's
like
the best way
balance.
to get better.
I
Yeah,
think balance overall like encompasses a lot of different things with bonds. Offensive cores, defensive cores, synergies, and
exactly.
provides a lot more to team building overall. I think.
Yeah. But also, you don't need to listen to me. Like if there's, I really do think the best philosophy is like find something you enjoy and just use it. So if you actually no, not if you enjoy using Bioplume, you shouldn't use it. But if you enjoy, something or stall, don't use stall either. But if you if you enjoy, whatever you want to do, there's people who just love, like for example, Phantom loves HL, right? He loves building HL. He loves messing with HL. That's what he wants to do. Like he should do that. You know what I mean? Like if you're Shinto, if you're somebody who loves bulkier balances that really rely on like long term game plans and outlasting your opponent, I don't want to say stall because whatever, it's gross, but bulkier balances. Then that's what you should be using, and you should be building teams that like look at Elias teams. Elias is super consistent with stuff with like Umbreon and Avalug and AV Meletta and Globro. And these are fatter teams, but he's able to really dismantle people with it. So there's all these different styles. Like find what you enjoy. I recommend starting with a more momentum based balance of sorts. Probably the best to get better, in my opinion.
Yeah. So kind of two questions that kind of go together from Grim and Shinto, just kind of
Mm-hmm.
pairing them together. Underrated and overrated Pokemon
The
currently
current NU
and
meta.
current NU meta.
Underrated Chandelure. I think that actually, Chandelure, I'm going to say two underrated Chandelure and Salazzle. I think that both are extremely potent right now. Um, I don't think people, add Dragology to that one too. I don't think people are using seals really enough, which makes me think that when it comes to poison types, they're really good. And we don't have bulky waters like at all. Um, and I don't think Salazzle has a reason to have dropped off, especially with how many fairies are around. And I think that Shandy is extremely difficult to switch into in general, especially if a team doesn't have an Umbreon. And when you factor in, I guess Snorlax is there, but like when you factor in, sub calm mind stuff, which I love. Like for example, let's say you set up, like my game against Elias, I was able to come in even paralyzed and go nuts against Registeel teams and stuff, and like Globro and all these things that it can really go crazy on. Like Fire Stab is really tough to switch into. So I think that any fire type, special fire type, really, or fire type in general, probably just special fire type actually. Mess around with it, go crazy. I think they're all great, and I think they're all probably underrated. As for an overrated, overused mon,
This is never
that's a
used
good
we're talking
question.
about here, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of want to say Gligar, but I don't know. Probably Gligar. No, you know what? Quillfish. I think Quillfish is awful. I think it's been bad for a while. I think that we use it because
Which variant are we talking here?
the only one that's it has any meta relevance right now.
There's
Um, so not the dark one.
okay, see that makes sense.
So
just clarifying.
I'm gonna say the same thing. I think there's some Pokemon. I'm looking at the list right now. Um, Pokemon that I see people use that shouldn't be used: Qwilfish, Sandslash. Like realistically, we use them because we think that they have these traits. Qwilfish has this typing of water poison, right? Ooh, it's not Toxapex, guys. Like it's not good. It's a bad mon. It's been bad for a while. Sandslash. Look, we don't have hazard control, right? I think that it's probably better than Qwilfish. It's just not. It doesn't do it for me, man. It's just bad. I think it's relatively abusable. I think we have much better ground types. I still see it every little bit. You're just you know you're just ruining yourself. You're just crippling yourself a little bit if you go that route. I kind of want to add Gligar. That's gonna be a more controversial pick. Um, just because Gligar, I think my problem with Gligar has always been it feels very abusable. And in the other metas where power level was a bit lower, it wasn't such an issue. I think right now, though, there's a lot that can just take advantage of it. I think that Gligar is going to be, you know, a B tier mon that fits very well on these offenses that just need a pivot plus hazards plus Voltimmune, et cetera, et cetera. Just something to take a hit and get out of there. But if you're trying to build balance around Gligar, I think you're going to struggle in the long run. I just don't see how. Look, here's a good example. Um, if you're a Gligar, right? What do you do against a? What do you do right now against like a Terra Steel, DD Flygon,
Cry.
or like you're just dumb. Like you just become, I guess nothing really beats that, but you just become setup fodder. Or like, what do you do against? What's another example? Um, is there another good example? Yeah, what do you do against, for example, Glowbro? Like you're a ground type, but you're doing 30 to the poison type, 35, and you're getting you just get beat. Like you're just done. And suddenly somebody comes in and gets rid of all your hazards, and you just basically sack them on for no reason. I think that there's a lot. I think there's a lot that can take advantage of Gligar, but it has its place. It's used too much, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially with Flygon being as good as it is right now. Like,
Yeah, DD. Oh, people should start using DD Flagon too. There's so many underrated things right now in the meta.
yeah, I mean, even with I still think Gligar has a niche. It's just with Flygon being as much of a shithead as it is.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like I can't really justify like I know the hazards of the pivoting are cool, but like
Knock
yeah, I
and
mean
like,
like it's
look, it has traits, but at the end of the day,
yeah.
like you're just not beating so many things,
Yeah.
especially over the course of the game. That's why I think it's really cool in offenses. I just think that look, at the end of the day, if you're trying to run it on balance and you're using it the way you might try to use other ground types in this metagame, you're not going to be happy. I
Right.
don't think.
I can agree with that. I think it's just over the other grounds that we have in the meta, which granted there's I'm like scrolling through the list.
We got Muds, we got Palace still around. Flygon is just
Rhydon I
so
guess
good.
exists.
I love Rhydon. I think Rhydon is probably still really good. I think it's probably underrated. Um, Toad Scroll's not real. Yeah, I mean we have a bunch. We have a bunch of grounds.
I want to see if we're hold on. Just a sidetrack real quick. I'm gonna look at RE real quick and see if they can drop any fucking ground
Just
types to us.
doubt it. We have enough grounds. It's not what we're missing. We're missing water. We just need a bulky water. But they have
Oh,
Golurk. Golurk will drop. By the way, that's basically confirmed. I think. Um, Torterra is going to drop. By the way, that too. Look out for that. What else is on the weak list? I don't think anything else. That's two more ground types. Like, but look, like, what is your Gligar going to do to your choice band uh, Golurk? Like, it's just sitting there,
Yeah.
just spamming Poltergeist.
Yeah, like
What are you going to do to your
you can
What are you
knock
going to do to Torterra? Like, you
you
can't
can
touch
knock the
it.
Golurk, but Golurk I think still has the funny move known as Ice Punch. So
It does. It does have a nice point. Like, look, that's why I think that if Torterra and Golurk, I don't think this thing lasts in NU realistically over the next month or two.
yeah.
And I think people should just embrace that and just admit that it's probably not so good.
So kind of similar to that, I guess. Favorite 2 to 3 mon core can be any gen, meta, offensive or
Oh,
defensive.
I think I mentioned this kind of earlier. My favorite is going to be seal baiting pivot. So historically, that was Raibombi or Ninjask or Rotomo plus strong fighting type. I think that whenever there's a metagame that just like drops and I have no clue what to run, I'm going to default to running that. Like I'm just trying to build something around that for ladder. I did it with Comfy and Pangoro. I did it with Raibombi and Surfetch. I did it with Raibombi and Gallade. I did it with Ninjask and Gallade. I did it with Rotomo and Surfetch. I did it with Rotom and Talon and Machamp, et cetera, et cetera. I just think that you're going to just do awesome things if you're able to use that core. I think it's the most fun you'll have just clicking, everything. Fomigo, Broom, doesn't matter what it is, just click, click, click. Um, that's my favorite for sure.
All right.
Now that
So
segues into my favorite question here, my favorite way to consume a potato.
I was just about to say that.
So, you know, I love potatoes. Uh, I'm obsessed with potatoes. I feel like there's two ways to go about this. The first one is, oh man, okay. There's all these traditional, like I'm an Ashkenaz Jew, right? People in the community would know that. So there's a bunch of traditional Jewish dishes from, my upbringing that are very much all about potatoes. Kugel, yapstik, um, those are awesome. I could eat that for the rest of my life. Um, there's but to just be kind of like more basic, I guess. Also, I think that fries, like fresh fries, are God's gift to man. And there's this potato recipe that we make in my house where we basically end up with these super crispy potatoes. Um, I can, Grim, DM me after. I'll send you the recipe. But it's basically a way to prepare potatoes where you go ahead and you boil them with baking soda for a little bit to bring out the starch, and then when you go ahead and you actually like roast them in like an oven, they get super crispy. That's awesome. That's the best. I love that. But nothing beats a good yapchik. Nothing beats my Bubby's kugel. Those two are going to be elite always. They're great.
And this segues into my question. So
Okay.
not
Oh, you
so
have questions?
not so not raw and unwashed. That's
No, definitely not. Definitely not raw and unwashed.
man.
Um, I do that only on Passover, and it's because it's part of the whole ceremony, and that is the only time.
So Shinto's fourth question here, a pretty good one. Do you own any Tatsugiri plushies, preferably any with cool shades?
I don't own any plushies actually, but if somebody wants to buy me some, just hit me up. I will happily take it. Not Tatsugiri. I don't like Tatsugiri. That mon is whack.
Hey, it
But
spawned
somebody wants.
one of my favorite
Yeah,
gifts I've ever made. Oh God, the
that's true.
Tatsus are coming.
That one's great. That I do agree with that. But if somebody wants to give me a Wormadam, Sandy plushie, now we're talking.
Yeah.
Or Lugia. I love Lugia.
Is Lugia still your fucking profile on Smogon? I think it is.
Um,
Your profile
yeah,
picture.
I haven't
Yeah.
changed it. It's been that for forever. I've actually people reach out to me and tell me how much they love it. I like it too. At this point, I feel like it's like
That's iconic.
is Rabbi a Shannon Sharp?
He is
That's
Shannon
awesome.
Sharp.
It's like Rabbi Shannon Sharp or Etern here with the duck that he hasn't changed it forever. Um, it's just part of my profile. I thought about switching it up, and then every time I'm like, man, I have no clue where I got this GIF, and I don't know how I'm gonna find it again. Like,
Did
I
you just
can't
call
do
it a
it.
fucking GIF? That's a peanut
Is that
butter
not what
brand,
it
bro.
is?
It's a GIF. Hard G.
Okay, we're not going down this one rabbit hole either. We don't have time for this. You're
Okay.
wrong.
So Rabia's first question, kind of similar to the Keo question. Often talk about
Hmm.
more bans than SSNU, Scrafty, Vileplume, Savali Ground, probably Rotom also in that mix, and Snorlax. Being
Yeah.
justifiable. What would you unban if you could to help add counterplay to certain problematic threats and why?
So yeah, this is a good question, and I've talked about this with Rabia before. It's come up a bunch, definitely over the community. And like part of what's interesting about SS is that like there's just nobody really knows what to do. It's all these different opinions about which way to go with it. Um, Anybody who's been around me knows I'm very vocally anti-Vileplume. I think Vileplume has to go. I think Savali Ground has to go, and I think when you get rid of Vileplume, especially Scrafty, probably Snorlax, all those really have to go too. But if we're trying to go ahead and keep Mons or unban things and try to keep the tier as it is, but add to it, um, I think in DDF is probably the best thing to unban. And look, I understand why we unbanned it in the past. That mod is strong. I just think that, the more things to go ahead and pressure Vileplume, the better. But I would do it also with the added caveat of you have to get rid of Savali Ground. I think that Savali Ground can look. That was one of the arguments I think Tog would make a lot. That Savali Ground and Rotom are really what's breaking these breakers, not the breakers themselves. I don't agree with it per se. I don't really think in DDF. I don't know if in DDF would be so balanced, but I think its best bet of being balanced is if you get rid of Savali Ground. And same thing with Machamp. I think that right now what the tier is really missing is not even strong breakers per se, but I guess strong breakers, but really a strong physical breaker, especially a strong fighting type breaker, who can get through a bunch of these physical walls. That's really like when I look in the builder, I'm like, man, what do I want to use right now? Like, what do I want to build around? I keep coming to that. Like, that's just a whole. People want to talk about how they feel the tier doesn't have breaking power. It's not that we don't have breaking power. I mean, we don't really per se, but there's it's really the lack of a strong physical breaker that I think is hurting, or that its presence is or lack of a presence is being felt. So I think that you have to get rid of Savali Ground in any scenario, but I think you can add Machamp, as a fighting type that is, that can break through Vileplume, and you can add potentially Indeedee as a special breaker that can just I'm trying to just break through Vileplume, right? I think both are probably too strong, and won't really last. But I'd also love to play around with the tier where Savali Ground is gone, but those two are still there.
Yeah. So just to recap, banning Savali
To
Ground.
recap, ban Savali Ground has to be the first step towards anything in the tier. I think. People are probably going to disagree with me. I think you ban Savali Ground. I think that the build. I mean, I think you'll have to ban Vileplume too for that, but I think you just get rid of Savali Ground. I think the builder opens up a ton. I think you're left with um, a lot. I think the biggest change is going to be you can end up probably with a lot more varied ground resist and grass types. Um, like, what's a good example? Serena, for example, as your grass type right now, just means that you're going to lose this volley ground because you're taking, if it SDs on the switch and you get U-turn, you're suddenly at 5 or something, a 10, right? It does like 80 to 90 or some stupid calc.
Yeah.
So, and then and then look, it's not a good mod. I don't think Serena is good. I think if you get rid of Vileplume and volley ground, I think Serena is very good. I think it's a very cool mod. My point is like there's a lot more variance and kind of things that can pop up in the way games are played once volley ground is out of the equation. After that, go crazy. You can figure it out. Do what needs to be done. That's probably the path that I would take if we're talking unbans.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, I guess you kind of already talked about this one a little bit. Do you enjoy
Yeah,
how
a
the
little bit.
DLC model impacts metagames? Do you like getting to see these new or different eras, so to speak, of any given tier?
I like the DLC model just because there are times where there's a meta that I really dislike, you know? I'm thinking back to the wizard meta of Inteleon, Sceptile, Scrafty, Salazzle, Crobat, all those stuff. Like those metas were awful. Like if that was the final meta, I would not be happy with NU. But DLC kind of adds a little of excitement. It adds something to look forward to. I don't really like that, as somebody who I said earlier likes a more settled, balanced metagame. I don't really like that, it doesn't get settled or balanced. It's much harder to, I think it's much harder to really get into. I think it's much harder to learn. It's much harder to feel motivated about getting resources out there, on the forums and all that. But there's a charm, there's an appeal, and it's fun. It's interesting. I'm kind of glad that it happens that way. I just hope that the final meta we end up with is a good one.
Sorry, I had to respond to some
Hello?
PMs on Showdown. I'm getting pinged out the ass. What former NU Pokemon, I guess this also kind of ties into everything from any other generation, would you like to have in current NU?
Vaporeon. It's like not even close. I think
I
that
mean, we might get it in shifts, so there's a
I
chance.
hope so. I think that the tier really needs a bulky water type right now. And yeah, I think Vaporeon is like what? I don't think there's a better fit. I'm looking kind of thinking old gens right now. We're about to get my boy Eggy A, so that's gonna be pretty cool. Um, what about you, Awen? You think there's anything else out there? Or no, not really.
Former NU Mons. I mean, let me look at current RU because there's definitely some in there that I
There's definitely
think.
some.
Eggy A is a
Uh,
goat. I love him. Um,
um,
I mean,
I think.
let me
Hmm,
see if there's anything there. I mean, Grimmsnarl getting that back would be cool. That was NU
yeah,
last gen, but
I don't really like Grimmsnarls. And you this gen. What are you talking about?
I know, but it was NU last gen too.
I
Um,
think Vaporeon is probably oh, you know what we really need too? We really need removal of any kind.
yeah.
Um,
I'm looking at this tier. Talon getting
I
that
don't,
boy back would be
oh,
sick.
Talon would be really cool. I think Talon's gonna drop too.
I think it
Um,
should. Like, there's a
I don't even know what defog. We really need defog Rotom back.
yeah.
I think defog Rotom would be a
It'd be one of the
great
best
addition to
hazard
the field.
removers in the tier if it had.
It would be the best hazard removal,
Let
and
me
people would run it.
let me look at
It would be
Gen 8
great.
NU real quick just to see if there's anything. I mean, I don't even think it's in the game, but I want Drapion or Drapion, however you pronounce it. I want that guy back.
Drapion. Oh, I love that mon. That mon design wise is one of my favorite.
Um,
Um,
I don't even know, is Mantine in this gen? That mon fucking blows, but like,
don't say Mantine. Mantine is not a viable
it's a
Pokemon.
cool
Come
mon.
on, man.
Tyrantrum. Now Tyrantrum would go crazy with Terra.
Uh,
Oh, I'd like that
oh,
guy.
wait, that's actually
I
that's
think
crazy
the
damage.
one that I would like a lot is
Maybe Zatu. We could have Zatu.
Heliolisk. Now that guy would be sick.
No, there's no point for Heliolisk in this meta without a water type.
Yeah, but Heliolisk has swag. That's the thing. You want to throw off Specs
Mm,
Volt switches? I know
mm,
I do.
Guzzlord could be. That's gonna be toxic. I would hate to face Guzzlord right now. Guzzlord with Terra. That sounds pretty cool, actually. Sounds broken. Yeah, I'm gonna stick by that one. I think Defog, Rotomo, and Vaporeon and Talonflame. Just make this SSNU, but with cooler Pokemon that as in the supporting cast. I think you get a perfect tier.
Yeah.
I'll say it. No, I don't know what would happen. But it would be cool.
All right. Last four questions. We are approaching.
Oh,
Let me look at a timestamp. We're at an hour 23.
yeah, I was about to say we're doing good.
Making
We're
good
doing pretty
time.
good.
So, Eternally's first question: how did you feel about your experience this past SCL as support for Freeze-Eye, and would you like the opportunity to be starting in the starting slot next SCL?
Um, that's an interesting question. Okay, so how do I feel about the experience? I'm glad that it happened, and I'm really glad that we got picked. It was kind of it was definitely a highlight moment of my mom's career of like being like, oh, like people acknowledging that, I put in the work and I had to pretty good record, and I was known at that point around. And I went undefeated in SCL too. Let's not forget that. Um, so like, I'm really glad that I got picked. I think that backing up Frieza was a bit interesting. Just because like, it was two things. The first was like truthfully, I wasn't so invested in prep the same way I should have been. I just felt I don't know. It was like Frieza really did a lot of his own prep as the truth, and we would oftentimes like do prep, but then I'd be like last second, be like, hey, I'm bringing this. I'm like, okay, and I would kind of give thoughts on like the team or the build, and then just help with random small little like techs or EV changes and pair changes and stuff like that. That was like most of my role in support for Frieza was that kind of like quality control bit. Um, and he should have had a much better record than he did. I mean, he should have really started 4-0. He got pretty unlucky against Axertix and Danny, and so on. But like, it was cool seeing the stuff he cooked up. Like, that giraffe rig is really that's probably an iconic NU moment of sorts. Where that thing that was just perfect prep. That was us talking. We were both in the zone. And he's like, "This seems good," and I'm like, "This seems awful, but try it out." And then he beat me with it in a test game. And I'm like, "This is the greatest set of all time." Um, but truth is that, like, SCL, look, I wasn't the most fun I had with like a team tour. And part of that was, personally, there was just a lot going on in my life and in the world, and it was just really tough. Being on Smogon, like I just was like, didn't really want to do much or be involved with the community for a while there. Um, and there was also like I don't know, it was kind of hard to I felt like I didn't have the same motivation that I felt like I should have had or had in other tours. And I think I wasn't like a bad teammate per se, but I feel like I could have been a much better one. And I think part of that too is like Frieza didn't have to rely on me. He was great doing his own thing. I was kind of more there to check in, and like a lot of our prep like things would just be super half baked last second stuff, just because like I'd be like, "Hey, Frieza, what are you thinking?" And he wouldn't respond, or he would respond, and then we talk, and then be like, "Oh, wait, shoot, it's Sunday. Like, what are we bringing?" You know. So it was okay. I think that I'm hoping the other SCL, hopefully my next SCL experience, assuming I get picked, and hopefully I will, it will be a slightly better one. Let's put it that way. But I was happy it happened, and it was good overall. Just I don't think it was ideal for a bunch of reasons.
Yeah. Eh, There's a lot of background noise going on in my mic. I hope you did not just hear that.
No, I didn't hear anything.
Okay,
You're
cool.
good.
So, second eternity question. I wish he spaced these out a little bit so they're easier to read. But can you tell us a
Yeah,
bit about why you voted the
format your
way? Now,
question.
granted, the way.
No, no.
Can you talk about the way? Why you voted the way you did in the recent council slate? Do you think your opinion of any of the mons you voted to ban could change in the now? Granted, this question was posted 8 days ago,
This is a bit old, but you know
so
what?
it's a little.
I'll talk about the most. Does you want to hear about the most recent slate or back then? It was same Mons kind of.
Yeah,
Um, can you tell me why you voted away? Yeah, I mean, okay, let's start with the Mon that is, has been on the slate now for like 4 times. I've voted ban like three or
Globro.
four times, whatever. Globro. I very much dislike the presence of Globro in the tier. I think in general, fat setup Mons are extremely problematic. I was very unhappy. This is after the Quick Claw, I think, slate, or right before it, whatever. I think that was a big mistake. We just banned, Quick Claw for effectively no reason when what made the Mon good and broken, or potentially broken, depending on, who you ask, had nothing to do with the quick draw stuff. And we kind of use it as like a band-aid to justify letting it live a little longer. Um, I think Globro, though, as a presence, I really dislike in the tier just because the combination of it's really regen. It's regen, it's a really good typing. You're a fat regen mon that can't be toxic, has perfect coverage, is relatively, isn't weak, and has, moves like Nasty Claw, Calm Mind that let you, set up on a lot of the tier and 1v1 a majority of the tier and then even trade 1-for-1 with Mons, and then just come back at full health at some point over the next little bit. And then you add in Terra, which just adds so much. I think Danny put it one time as like the only thing stopping Globro from winning every game is it has the wrong Terra type. And there's truth to that. But you go for a neutral Terra like Fairy or what else is a good Terra right now on Globro? I guess really Fairy is probably the best one, right? Is there anything else you think of as like really prevalent? I think I've seen like random steel, which I don't know how I feel about. Water. Like, you just see people throw random Terras on Globro, and it's just you can kind of pick and choose. And I think that there's very little reason to not throw it on just about every team that you can. I think Naspot, like with helmet stuff, is really the most broken, but I think that AV is really good. I think probably Calm Mind stuff is unexplored. I think people are really only using Nasty Block for good reason, but I bet you can get away with Calm Mind and stop stuff like Meloetta. And then you factor in Sludge Bomb Poison. Like I just really dislike its presence in the tier. And kind of with that trend of fatter setup, Scrafty. Scrafty with Terra was, predictably a beast, right? Like, what's really stopping Scrafty with Terra outside of Vileplume? I think people tried to hype up DD sets. I don't think those things were any good. But when you have like these bulk up stuff, man, it's a menace. It's a mon that can just 1v6 entire teams, that don't really have pretty specific counterplay. I think right now, in general, but I think defensive Terra with fat setup is the most broken combo that you can come up with. I think defensive Terra in general is much better than offensive Terra, but really when it comes to like fat setup stuff, it's really, really difficult to go ahead and actually beat down, not impossible, but very difficult to consistently beat down fast setup mods with Terra. When, let's say, what's a good example? Let's take Scrafty, right? So you're Scrafty and you're facing off against I don't know. Well, let's pick an offensive counter. Let's say it's like Dazzling Gleam, or it doesn't even get Dazzling Gleam. It does, right? Meloetta or Focus Blast Meloetta, right? Expects Meloetta, and it's trying to knock you out in one hit, and suddenly you Terra Poison and you flip the entire matchup. And because you're a fat setup mon, it's much easier for you to take hits. But then if you're going up against the offensive counterplay that people like to talk about offensive counterplay as ways to deal with these mons. Against fat setup, when it comes to Terra, it doesn't really work so well a lot of times, just because a mon can go ahead and actually flip the matchup and then go ahead and KO your much frailer offensive mon. So that in that situation, Meloetta will end up getting Pterodon, and then once he knocked out by knockoff, and suddenly you're like, wait, but my special breaker that was meant to stop the bulk up physical setup is suddenly dead. Why? Terra's busted. So that's why on that. And then our Thorns is just with Terra, you give it two DDs, it's over. What else is on the slate? I don't know really. Oh, there's nothing else, right?
I don't think so.
Oh,
Quick Claw.
but anyway, in quick BS, whatever. I wasn't so happy with that one, but it doesn't matter. I do think though that as a general trend, if you want to find what's broken or you want to find something broken in the metagame, you find the fat setup mon that's very good at Terra. You saw me use, G Terrain against Elias, which, has caught on, and I think it's like 4 or 5-1 in games that I've watched it so far. I think 5-1 over NUCL and Circuit. And there's a reason for that. Like you have a mon like Uxie, and you go ahead and you throw in the ability to tear out, whether it's the boost or draining kiss, but really just to turn defensive matchups. It's just how do you deal with a mon like that sometimes, without very specific, pre-thought counterplay. And a lot of that can even still get turned on its head. You just got to be careful. So that's probably the way I'm going to end up voting. I feel like a lot throughout this meta. I mean, just in general, my biggest pet peeve has always been fat setup. I just hate fat setup. Vileplume, Crystalia, the list probably goes on and on and on. And with Terra, I just think it gets blown to a whole different level. It's crazy. So, yeah, E-turn. I hope that satisfies you, and I hope that helps you understand why I voted ban on Registeel, and why I think we should also ban Knuckle Stack. People haven't caught on to that yet. Get using it, trust me. And if it's bad, it's a you problem, not a me problem. Okay, next question.
Next question. How do you think we can make it more appealing for people to explore older generations of the tier and raise their activity outside of NU Classic team tours? And is it a worthwhile investment as opposed to focusing predominantly on the current generation?
Huh. I think that, I think we should work right now more on getting people involved with current gen before we worry about old gens. I think that there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done when it comes to our forums, especially. Probably the way that we, think about um, what else has really been kind of on my mind recently. Definitely forums. I think is the main thing. But the way we update like just the way we update resources, the way we post and talk. I'm guilty also of not doing that stuff because we've kind of shifted to Discord. I think we have to change our attitude of back towards the more traditional uh, ways of getting people, or just I guess of communal involvement. Hopefully that pops up again with DLC and stuff as like you see things start popping out and analysis, all that. I think that you have to focus. Like right now, we have problems with getting people involved with current gen. So until you can really solve that, you can't have a tier without the current gen. The older gens are always going to be there.
Yeah.
And I think once you have a dedicated or an excited current gen base, then it kind of translates a lot to these older gens. Like think about how many people um, in the community right now have kind of been drawn a little bit to GSC or RBY because they were super involved with NU and they heard that there was like people who were excited about, XYZ in those tiers and they went to try it and said, hey, like this is pretty cool. I think Oath or Please No Step and the list goes on and on. So I think that if we really want to go ahead and expand just our player base in general, like our old gen, it's all the same people every time, right?
Yeah.
And all these, you just see the same people besides in like RBY and GSC where things are shifting right now. Um, and I guess DPP because nobody kind of wants to play it. But I think that if you want to go ahead and get more people involved in older gens, you have to get people involved with the current gen. So many way things can change, and I think that we have the capabilities for it. We just have to get, you know, Awen now. You're a mod. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Like there has to be, I think it starts from the top. Obviously, I've complained about it and I haven't done anything, and I'm guilty of that. Life was pretty busy over the past year, and I'll have much more time now, hopefully, to get involved with this stuff. But you have to, yeah. I didn't really. By the way, I didn't realize how much time college, gives you. I thought I'd have way less time, but
Yeah.
like I have like 2 classes a day. It's weird. Um, but if anybody's trying to schedule with me, I'm only available for like an hour on Sunday afternoons. So, but I think that it starts from the top down. You got to get the mods, the mod team, the TLs to start both posting a bunch more and getting projects out there and keeping things like being committed, to keeping things updated. And if they don't have the interest or the want to do it, then find somebody else who can, to do that job or to fill that slot. Like right now, well, how many projects have we? SSNU had a ton of projects, right? And they all ended
Yeah.
up dying out.
I think the
And but we
big
also
thing
had,
about SSNU was also because we were during COVID. Like a lot of
yeah, I
people,
mean, obviously,
shifted to
you
virtual a lot
can't.
more,
It
and
was COVID. It's not just that. It's COVID. It's people get older. Like, look, I was probably a prime. Like when I joined, there was probably a ton of people like me who were, 15, 16, however old I was, who were just looking for something to do, and they had time and energy on their hands. And now, like I'm not a boomer yet. I hope, but, I'm getting up there, and
you're like
like life
you're
is,
like 14 years old, bro. You can't call yourself a
yeah,
boomer yet.
to some people. Sometimes I'm in college now, so and I'm old for college too, bro. Like it's actually kind of funny. I was, because I took a year off, right, and I was already old for my age. So all these classes, these professors come in, they're like, "Oh, like what years are you guys on board?" And the whole room goes like 2005, and you just hear me in the back like 2003. So I'm old, man. I turned 21 in September, so we're getting there. But like there people just have less time. People have less energy. It's not like COVID where you had nothing else to do. That's true. But I don't think that's really an excuse, and I think that you see across other metas and other tiers how they're able to get people involved and interested in like they have projects running. Like there's really no reason that NU, especially with the community we have, can do it. I just think we have to somehow find a way like to get people all on the same page and figure out really what we're trying to do and change our mindset towards focusing too much on the Discord and the room to focusing a bit more on the forums. um, I think that we've there's there's been a shift. I think when we've talked about this, so I know you're aware of it too, or you felt it.
Yeah.
That there's been some sort of mental shift in whether room staff, mod team, uh, TLs to council towards trying to focus much more on Discord engagement. And we have a pretty popular Discord. There's a lot of conversation, and I
Yeah.
hang out a lot on the Discord because like with ADHD, I get a notification, I just I'm there, which is probably why I bet if we look right now, I bet I have more lines on Discord than any other user on in the community.
I will check that statement real
Do that.
quick.
Check that right now.
Let's see. So in channels that I can see, I see 40,514. I think I might have a tad more than that.
No, you don't.
I have 47,000. So
Wait, what? How do you? Wait, you have more than me? How much do I have?
40,000. I have like 7,000 more than you. But granted,
All right.
I also do the thing where you space out the messages. So
Yeah, I do that too. Though that's how I got to 10,000 lines.
granted,
Real
I'm
ones
in
know.
a couple more private channels that you cannot see. So
Okay, but okay, come on. No need to try to flex like
I'm not
the
flexing. I'm
room
just
one or
saying I
room
do
one.
have
That gives you like
because
that gives
I
you
was
like
shitting on
100.
Rabia for the same thing
Come on.
when I was
Yeah, hold on. Just
room
hold on.
driver. I think when I came back to staff, I was shitting on Rabia for the same thing. He was like, "Dude, there's like 9 channels that I'm in that you cannot see." And then he posted his logs. And he has like 70K, I think, or some shit. It's ridiculous. Actually, let me check. I'm gonna cross
Hold up.
check that
Hold up.
from
Okay, fine. But
user.
when was your first when was your first
Okay, I have more than Rabia,
message?
but he has channels that I can't see, so it's probably closer to like 60K. My first message, I,
Rob,
I don't, I
that's
don't.
great. Because look, I think I did it. I think I have more. I think I have more messages over the past like since I showed up. I don't know
Um,
how long this 5 years, 4 years. I feel like I talk all the time.
Let me see if I can find. Okay, so I joined the server on the 12th of June. Granted, I join and leave quite frequently, so my
Oh
join
yeah,
date is off, but I joined initially the 12th of June 2020.
when did I join?
I think my first message was
2021.
big chancy time. I think that was my first message in the server. It was big chancy
I
time.
joined. I joined once I got voice because I think my first message was like, "Thank you guys, like happy to be here" or something dumb like that. Because I wasn't using Discord before. I think I might have did I download Discord just to join the NU Discord? It's possible. I don't think so though. But I really wasn't. I was in like a friend. I'm in like a friend personal Discord and then like a bunch of just mods ones.
Yeah, I'm looking at my thing. Yeah, my first message in the server was big chancy time. So
Epic.
because that's when because that was a Isle of Armor DLC or whatever the fuck it is, and that's when NFEs got re-added. So they all went down there. So like Scyther and a couple others, like P2 and
Um,
Chansey and a couple of others. But we
hmm.
got one final question. You can get
All right. Last.
multiple answers for it. Favorite NU related meme slash iconic moment. There's a lot of them.
Okay. You know what? No, I'm gonna toot my own horn on this one. Okay. I'm gonna go with one, and I think that it has to be that time that I dropped 10,000 lines in the NU room,
I knew you were gonna say
basically
that.
entirely about Crest. Yeah, it's on my mind after I just mentioned it a second ago. Because okay, let's be honest, 10,000 lines in a month might be the most all time in a room, and
it,
I don't know who can confirm this. Maybe Rabia.
it
Has
was
anybody?
it was the
Has
month of
anybody else?
February, by the way. So he did this in
Yeah,
28 days.
I did it in 28 days. Was it really? It was
It
February.
was February because that's when Cress was the big fucker. So you averaged about
Yeah.
357 lines a day, just about,
No,
or
but what
actually a
people
little bit
also don't
higher.
realize is I ended up grinding 2.5 or 3,000 in the last like
3 days probably.
uh no last like 36 hours because I realized that I wasn't there. Like if you go back to those logs and nobody was talking, I'd be up to like 2 a.m. like just like talking to myself basically. like and spacing out lines. I want to know if anybody. I don't think anybody is near. I don't
No,
think anybody has
I,
10,000
I don't
lines
think so.
across any room across Spellbound.
That month is
I think
crazy too because when
you hit 4,004.
I had 4,004, I think Korth had like 5,800, I think, or something like that. It
Yeah,
was a
we
fucking ton.
that was like what I'm talking about. People went we went crazy in the chat that month.
Yeah, I did the math, and over the entirety of the lines, 3 users combined, so me, Slice, and Corthius, combined for 34% of the room activity across the
Oh
entire
my
month of
God.
February.
I thought it would be more.
Well, I made that when I did the so spoiler for anyone that doesn't know, I made a doc. It was about 100 lines in pastebin, but it was spaced out shittily. But I made a doc basically about what we can do to fix forums. This is about like 6 months ago, but
Yeah, now that you're a mod, when are you implementing that?
soon to be determined. But I mean, I do have the perms now, so I can. But
You could.
yeah, that's yeah, 34% of the room activity is fucking insane. Like, and that doesn't seem like a lot, but like I'm gonna do a cross check. So since this isn't gonna be edited, I don't feel like let me because I do have the line count command. This is gonna take fucking ages. Oh my god, I have to go back like 2.5 years for this shit. Okay, I'm on August 2023. I'm just gonna keep like spam clicking, except it's gonna flood the API and it's gonna shit me out of Showdown real quick. But I'll find the number. But I think
Yeah.
overall in that month we combined for like about just below 20,000 lines, I think total.
Yeah. I
So
mean, we
and
could do the
I
math.
think in the month we had like 34,000,
And
I
for
think, or
everybody
something like
who
that.
doesn't know or wasn't around, I kept checking the lines. I made sure I hit exactly 10,000. So there's a screenshot of like
Yeah.
PokeSlice won 10,000 lines.
Yeah, I tried
Um,
hitting 4,000 on the dot, and I went over because I was like counting the
you
lines
did.
wrong.
You went,
So I ended up
yeah.
at 4,004. But it was funny because 4,004 is like a, I guess you can call it like a
I
palindrome
do.
number. But
I yeah. It was cool though. I
okay,
do. I am curious actually, and if Rabia makes it this far in the video, number one, I want to know: Am I the only one? Am I the only one to hit 5 digits on room count on Showdown? And if not, who else beat me? If you can check that. And other thing, I want to know what possibly were you guys saying about me in like the staff chat? You were all like, this dude is like beyond stupid because I think I'm still
there
host
was there was some
or was
good
I a driver?
discussion
Curious.
about that.
I'm very curious.
Okay,
Maybe
I found the 10,000. There was 53,074 lines that month. We had 5 users
just
go
20.
above 2,000 lines.
That's crazy.
My fucking goat, longtime legend,
Shleeby on
Schleeby,
Miss Shleeby.
2,000 lines on the dot. For over 1,000, we had 12 users. For over 900, we had 15.
Wow.
Over 800, also 15. But over 700, we had 16. Like, the room was popping. The lowest amount of lines in a month was 71. And the highest was 10,000. So if my math is correct, 10,000, I'm going to do it during the recording, but 10,000, Corthius had 5,865 plus 4,004 is 19,869 divided by 53,074. Times 100 to get a percentage. 37.44%. So 37% of the room activity. That is fucking insane. Like
That's crazy.
and a lot of these people are still around to my knowledge. Like Shleeby, I think is just in college.
Oh,
Quite
Shleeby.
Quiet was 1512. He's still
GQ,
around. Swifty,
GQ had
Shiftry,
15, 12 lines.
yeah, he kind of went crazy.
That's the craziest. That's the craziest part of that month.
Zerovis was 972. Danny with
Bro.
943. Let's see. X Boss with 524. Rest in peace to the legend.
R.I.P.
But yeah,
Yeah, crazy man.
that's quite a lot of room activity, and we don't see that now. So actually, I'm gonna go on Showdown and I'm gonna see how many lines we have in the month because I think I might be number one still. There's a good
True.
chance. Top
I
users.
don't. I really don't have so many lines
Okay,
as
I
you. I
am
just, you
number.
know,
I'm number three. There's 5,934. Not great. Last month we had 14,000. So there's a pretty steady decline, I think, throughout the end of SS. I think the end of SS really kind of hit hard. The beginning of SV hit crazy. We had 62,000 one month.
yeah, that makes sense. You know,
We had
that was
2,000,
also that
2,000
was
in a
also
month.
around. That
In
was
a
also around when Rizai was really paying, attention more to the tier and putting out videos too, and like
yeah,
people just wanted to play.
yeah. But that is gonna do it for I think the longest player of the week interview so far, at least.
Yeah,
So
but we hold up. Let's not put it that way. I tried to go fast. We chilled a little bit more at the end.
I mean,
I
this
think
is
I did
also
pretty good.
a fucking ton of questions, so I'm not
It
too
is a ton of
surprised.
goals.
But big shout outs to the legend POKESLICE for coming on for the interview. And something that I do at the end of these interviews, I let the
Mm.
interviewee suggest who I should interview for the next one.
Um,
Now, granted, I might
I
not take the suggestion, but I'll hear it out.
well, I think I know who you have lined up, but I would like to see in a back-to-back future. I would like to hear Etern's California accent. Um, and I would also, but I do want to really hear from Rabia.
He's
Um,
already done
and
one,
I want to.
but
Oh, he did one.
we
When did
could
he do one?
last generation. It was like my fourth one, I think that I did. Three or
Okay,
four.
fine. Not Rabia. Rabia, whatever. You already did one. Etern, he's probably also already done one, but
Nah, he hasn't.
um,
Last gen was
Rab-
we started with Oathkeeper. We had Team Charm,
oh,
Rabia.
that's a TC on the mic. That's
Yeah, I had
crazy.
TC on the mic. That was when
I would,
BB Scarm had his server up.
I would love to see you interview Taki too. I think that would be epic. Um,
For legal reasons, I'm gonna decline, but not gonna dive
yeah, I
into
don't know.
details. But I'm declining.
Yeah. Oh, ski, 100% ski. Um, I think Ski would be an awesome person to have on the mic. Who else? Um, Probably Ski and E-Turn. Let's go with that. I'm gonna lock that one in.
It's a good duo.
Both great choices. Great duo.
All right, so
Um,
that
I'd be shocked though if you can get E-Turn
if I can
and
get
he's
E
not
turn
on
on the
mute the
mic, it's
entire
going
time,
crazy.
and he's not on mute. I don't know. That might be the greatest interview of all time
It's
after this one.
gonna go crazy. But that's gonna do it. Wrapping up the interview here at an hour and 53 minutes. So big shout outs to Slice for coming on, and we will
My
see you
pleasure.
guys in the next one.